I can tell you right now that I've over all these years, this is a cedar type. I've always wanted a cedar. The Jeff Elliott from '84 was, I thought, really an excellent cedar top, and I had a number of others, but they didn't. Something, especially cedars, can be a little not as clear as spruce guitars. People who know guitars know that. Possibly because of this Ramirez bracing working so well with cedar and with 8-string. This is the clearest cedar I've had. I really love this one. I am still more of a spruce player. I have a preference for that. I have 2 other spruce guitars here that Darren made. Darren's built me, I think this is the 13th one in 5 years. And I don't keep guitars. I'm not a collector. As I sell guitars as I move along. There are 2 he's going to make for me with this Ramirez design sometime coming in the coming year. One is going to be German spruce with East Indian rosewood. The other is going to be Engelmann spruce with East Indian rosewood. I have actually, of all the guitars, everybody talks about Brazilian rosewood, and I have a preference now that I think it's hard to tell because it's not the primary tone wood. But I think that I like East Indian rosewood a little better. It may be that it adds slight warmth, and it may be a little bit more of an even wood, and it certainly is less likely to crack. And Darren has great East Indian rosewood. Also, of all the tone woods that I've tried, German spruce, Swiss spruce, Yugoslavian spruce, Engelmann spruce, Adirondack spruce, blue spruce which is a relative of Engelmann spruce. They're both from the Rocky Mountains, North America. And I've tried cedar and yellow cedar and redwood. And if to the extent that you can attribute tone to a tone wood, to the soundboard and everything, at this point I'm going with what I think the best experience I've had so far have been German spruce, Engelmann spruce, and cedar. However, I don't know if I should even say. Let me take that. I'm going to say the best experience I've had. We're going to go with German and Engelmann spruces again for the next 2. The Adirondack spruces, they've all made really, really good guitars. When I've sold guitars, everybody's always been happy with the guitars that I've sold. Part of the reason why I've moved on is actually trying different bracing patterns and also getting guitars more playable, and also intonation has been a big thing. Darren's really refined his fret placement is based on the Gilbert fretting placement ideas. You know about those, right? And Greg Byers has a slightly different system, and there's the traditional system of doing it. And a big part of making that work, by the way, is just, in my opinion, but in the opinion of a lot of people that I know, is how you intonate the saddle. That's a very big factor. Well, there are a number of factors. Remember, guitars are very complex systems. There's a lot of things that are at work, and you always have to keep that in mind. And also, when you say what's the best sound, the best sound is really, the best guitar is the guitar that you play that you think is the best guitar. It could be different bracing patterns, it could be different woods. It's such a complex system because it has to do with the wood, the system of the guitar, and also has to do with the talent of the guitar maker, and it also has to do, maybe to a certain extent, with just luck, that everything on that particular guitar really came together, and that's a great sounding guitar.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to duplicate, for any builder to duplicate exactly, even though usually the best guitar makers, they do have a sound that it's pretty recognizable. Most people who hear Hibner's hear that, and Jeff Elliott has the sound, and you have Michael Tenn's guitar. Michael's a great builder. So there's a lot of great builders around actually today. I love Darren, but and one of the things I really like about Darren Hibner a lot is how respectful he is of other builders too. He's very admiring of the old masters and modern guitars too. He's a very cool guy that way.
Switch gears a little bit. You make your living as a freelance musician in New York City, correct?
That is my primary income is usually that. When I say usually, if I go back over the last 10 years, for instance, as you know, I have a string quintet called the Abaca string band. So depending on any given year and what our business arrangements were via booking agencies, so on and so forth, I've had years where the bulk of my income was from playing concerts with the group. I've had years where the bulk of my income was playing special events, corporate events. And we don't do too many weddings. I happen to like playing weddings, but most of the party work that we do is usually corporate work. So there's been some years where the bulk of it was from that. There were years, like in the last 2 years, I've had a 3-night-a-week steady engagement at the Intercontinental Hotel, the Barclay, here in New York City, which I'm just starting a hiatus. I'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to be off from there for the next couple of months, 2 or 3 months. But in the last 2 years, most of my income was that. So it does vary a bit. My wife and I also have a duo, and that can get very busy. I will actually, in answering your question about how to make a living as a guitarist, what I discovered for myself was that it really made a huge difference to have a good variety of things that you offer. I play solo guitar. I can do a solo classical guitar concert, all classical. I can do a party for 4 hours if they want only pop music. My wife and I have a duo where we can play a party or a special event, and we also do concerts. And then I have the group, and the concert group is actually quintet. But sometimes, if there's not enough budget, I have arrangements for trio. Usually the trio is either guitar, mandolin, and bass, or guitar, violin, and bass. And on occasion, somebody wants, I've done gigs where they wanted 9 string players. And that's actually, with my quintet, that's actually very easy to do. Instead of 1 violinist, you have 2 mandolin, 2 violas. Usually you don't double bass, but one double the double bass. But actually once they wanted 2 bass players, and they wanted a little chamber orchestra. So if you're going to make a living, if you're a classical guitarist and you're going to make a living as a performer, really, for most people, need to have a lot of variety. There are a few people, and you know and I know who they are. There are a few people, but not many, who make a living as solo classical guitar performers. But that's very rare. It's very, very hard to do. Whether or not I could have done that, it wasn't really something I wanted to do, because back in the 80s, I remember I did a number of tours, solo guitar, classical guitar tours, and I just found being on the road alone to be really lonely. That was not for me. And that's one of the reasons why in 1991 I started the Abaca string band. And when we go on the road, things are a little slow right now for the group. It's slow all over. As you know, with the recession we've been through, this has been an extremely difficult time for musicians. And when we go on the road, as the leader of the group, one of the great things about being the leader, there's some awful things about being a leader, but one of the great things is you get to choose who's coming with you. And I learned to put a very high priority on people just who get along really well. That it just makes a huge difference. And in New York City, there are so many great players around that you can actually have wonderful players and still take a lot of care in making sure all the personalities mesh well. So when we go on the road, we have a great time, and it's really a lot of fun. We all love doing it. The other thing is, in making a living as a musician, it helps if there are things outside of performing you can do. One of those that's sort of something I've been doing for a long time, but I'm just starting to get it happening professionally, is composing. It's very difficult to make a living doing this and make a living from playing, but I've been doing it since 1975, and I have enjoyed every bit of it. It's, I like to say that for a freelance musician, in good times, it's precarious, and in bad times, it's bone crushing. And I've had my bones crushed, especially when I was young, in my 20s, 30s. It could be just so devastating, but if you can survive it and hang in there, you do get used to how difficult it is. And the older you get, it's actually easier, because you become established and people know who you are. And